All right, welcome to our explainer. Today we're jumping into one of philosophy's oldest and toughest questions, and we're pulling it straight from Plato's classic, The Republic. The big question is, what exactly is justice, and honestly, why should we even bother with it?
So let's kick things off with a question that really gets to the heart of it all. Why be a good person, especially when you could totally get away with not being one? I mean, what really motivates us, deep down, when nobody's watching?
You know, this is the exact question that kicked off a legendary debate led by the philosopher Socrates more than 2,000 years ago. He was just hanging out at a party, and the conversation turned to what it really means to be a just or good person. Let's see how their first attempts to pin it down worked out. So the conversation starts out with this pretty simple, common-sense definition from a respected old guy named Cephalus. He basically suggests it's straightforward. Just tell the truth and pay back your debts. Seems reasonable enough, right? But Socrates, being Socrates, immediately pokes a hole in this. He throws out a simple scenario. What if you borrowed a weapon from a friend, but since then, he's completely lost his mind? Are you supposed to give it back to him? Of course not. That wouldn't be just at all. It would be incredibly dangerous. So right away, we see that a simple rule like pay your debts just doesn't cut it.
So that first idea, it completely falls apart. And that's when a new voice, a much more aggressive voice, jumps into the debate, pretty much ready to tear the whole conversation down.
This is the philosopher Thrasymachus. He's been listening on the sidelines, getting more and more annoyed, and he just can't take it anymore. Plato describes him as bursting in like a wild animal, totally flipping the script with this super cynical take on the whole thing. Thrasymachus basically says, you guys are all naive. He claims this whole conversation about what justice should be is a waste of time. For him, justice is nothing more than the rules the powerful make up to benefit themselves. Whatever helps the people in charge is justice. Simple as that. Okay, so Socrates hears all this, and he's just not buying the whole might makes right argument. He thinks Thrasymachus is completely missing the point of what it means to be a leader, and he starts to pick apart that cynical position piece by piece. And he comes back with this really clever analogy. He says, look, any real skill, whether it's being a doctor or training a horse, is always about benefiting the one being served, the weaker party, not the person with the skill. A doctor's whole purpose is the patient's health, so it follows that a true ruler's skill must be for the good of the people they rule, not for themselves. And he takes it a step further. He points out that injustice is just self-destructive. It creates chaos, whether you're talking about a whole city, an army, or even just a single person's soul. Injustice leads to conflict and infighting, making it impossible to get anything done. So Socrates wraps up his argument here by saying that justice is a virtue, it's what makes a soul excellent. And since virtue leads to a happy, flourishing life, the just person is happy and the unjust person is miserable. Boom, Thrasymachus is silenced. But, and this is a big but, the debate is far from over. Right when you think Socrates has nailed it and won the day, two other guys in the room, Glaucon and a Daemontis, step in. They're on Socrates' side, but they feel like the real, core question still hasn't been answered. Glaucon says, hold on, Socrates. All you've really argued is that justice is better than injustice. You haven't proven that it's a good thing in and of itself, even if you get nothing but pain and a bad reputation for it. And to force a better answer, he lays out this really powerful new way of looking at it. To set this up, Glaucon breaks down all good things into three categories. First, there are things we want just for their own sake, things that are just enjoyable, like happiness. Second, there are things we want both for their own sake and for the results they bring, like being healthy. And third, there's the tough stuff, things that are a pain which we only do for the rewards they get us, like going through a painful medical treatment. And then he hits Socrates with the million-dollar question. So, Socrates, in which of these classes do you put justice? Socrates answers right away. The highest class, of course, something you want for itself and its results. But Glaucon fires back that most people don't see it that way at all. He argues they secretly put justice in that third, painful category, a burden you only put up with to get a good reputation and stay out of trouble. And to prove his point, that people are only good because they're afraid of getting caught, Glaucon tells this incredible, chilling story from mythology. The legend goes that there's this ordinary shepherd, his name's Gyges, and he finds a magical ring after an earthquake opens up the ground. When he twists this ring on his finger, poof, he becomes completely invisible. So what does he do with this newfound superpower?
With zero fear of consequences, his morality just evaporates. He uses his invisibility to sneak into the palace, conspire with the queen, assassinate the king, and take over the entire kingdom for himself.
So here's the kicker. Glaucon argues that if you had two of these rings and you gave one to a so-called just person and the other to an unjust one, there would be absolutely no difference in what they did. This, he claims, proves that no one is just willingly. Justice isn't some personal good we strive for. It's just a social rule we follow because we're too weak and scared to do otherwise. To make the challenge absolutely impossible to wiggle out of, Glaucon presents this final brutal thought experiment. Compare two lives. The first guy is perfectly just, but everyone thinks he's a terrible person. He's despised, tortured, and eventually executed. The second guy is a master of injustice, a truly awful person, but he keeps up a flawless public reputation for being a saint. He gets rich, powerful, and everyone respects him. Who, Glaucon asks, has truly lived the better life? And that is the powerful challenge Plato leaves us with. It forces us to look past reputation, rewards, and punishments and really examine our own true motives. It's not a question with an easy answer, but it's one we all have to face. If you had that power, the power to be completely invisible and free from all consequences, would you still choose to be a just person?